All right, so today we're going to be talking about determining dependency for financial aid. So on the agenda for this video, what is dependency in the context of financial aid or FAFSA and WASFA? Why does dependency matter for the FAFSA or WASFA? How is it determined? And then what do I do if I think my situation is unique or different? Who do I contact with questions about my dependency status? So those are the things we are going to be covering in this video. So what is dependency? Dependency is a term, so a word, that's used in the context for funding for education to determine the status of a student. And dependency is relevant to both the FAFSA and WASFA applications. It's really about whose information you are required to report on the FAFSA or WASFA. So that's what we mean when we talk about the word dependency. So like I said, dependency status it's really about whose information you need to include. Is it your information in addition to your parent and or legal guardians, or is it just yours? So if you're a dependent student, you're required to report you and your parent or guardian's information. But if you're an independent student, you only are required to report your own information. And then if you're married, you have to include your spouses as well. Okay, so that's the biggest difference is in dependency, whose information am I required to report for the FAFSA or WASFA? And it's determined by this either dependent or independent status, okay? Oops. Okay, so how is dependency determined? So for the most part, if you're under the age of 24, you're not married, you don't have children, you're not in the military, you are not legally emancipated from your parents by a court, you weren't in foster care, then you are a dependent. Okay, that means that you need to report your information and your parents or legal guardians. Okay. To be considered independent, there's a lot of criteria here of what constitutes an independent status. So if you're one of these statements under independent, you would be considered independent and not be required to report anyone else's personal or financial information other than your own on the FAFSA or WASFA, okay? So if you were 24 years old, married, if you have children who you are supporting, more than half of their support is coming from you. If you have other dependents that are receiving more than half of their support from you that you would like claim on your taxes as dependents. If you are active duty military or a veteran of the US military, you would be considered independent. And then also if you were in foster care after 13, if your parents are deceased, if you were legally emancipated by a court, okay, you would be considered independent. And then also if you are considered an unaccompanied youth or homeless or at risk at being homeless, that also constitutes independent status, okay? So I would refer to this slide when you're trying to figure out if you're which dependency status, if you're independent or dependent. All right, common scenarios or questions that we receive. So one common question is, what if I was in foster care? So if you were in foster care since you were 13 and up, you were automatically considered independent. If it was before 13, there's a box on the FAFSA and on the WASFA application that you will mark. And there's a little bit more information that's usually needed to determine dependency status for that, okay? What if I don't live with my parents? So this is very common. What if I don't live with my parents and I pay for all my own expenses without any financial help from them? So if they don't give me any money and I am independent as far as my own finances, what does that mean for dependency on the FAFSA or WASFA? So paying for all your own expenses still does not omit you. So it doesn't put you in the clear for being a dependent until you're 24, really. So you still would need to provide your parents' information unless any of those other examples that were listed on this previous slide, I'm going to go back real quick, are true, right? So, okay. So even if you live independently from them and receive no financial help from them, typically you still need to provide the parental information for the FAFSA or WASFA application. Okay. What if I live with someone else, but not my legal guardian by court order, and my parents live outside the US? So what if I'm just like living with someone else, and my parents live outside the United States? So this is a very common question. You'll still be required to enter your parents' personal information on the FAFSA or WASFA if you're considered a dependent. You'll mark that your parents on the application that they live in a foreign country. For that, there's a question about residency for your parents. You will just mark that they live in a foreign country, okay? All right. So those are really common dependency questions and scenarios. I recommend, again, that you refer to this previous slide. I'm going to go back real quick. In going over dependency, just because there's a lot of options here. It's also something that both the FAFSA and WASFA application will check for. They have a set of questions when you start doing the application that helps to determine dependency. Okay. So if you think that your situation is unique or different, there's ways to get in contact with folks about your dependency status. So if you're still confused, you really should contact the school's financial aid office to which you are applying, and you can ask them for help in determining your dependency status for the FAFSA or WASFA. They really are the experts and can help give you some really specific guidance. The financial aid office can help you determine dependency, and they can also let you know if there might be any additional dependency paperwork that you would need to submit to their office, which is really helpful in getting a head start on working on completing your file for financial aid. Yeah. All right. So just to leave you with this, for this question, if you think that your situation is unique or different, or you have those questions about dependency status, this is the information for South Seattle College's financial aid office. So their location on campus is in the Robert Smith building in the lobby. Here's their phone number for you and their email. And that is their office's preferred method of communication, is to just email your question. Make sure you include your first and last name and your CTC link ID. Okay. All right. Thank you.